My friends, listen to me. There is a pain far worse than wounds of the flesh, a silent agony, slow and unseen, a life spent being overlooked, dismissed, disrespected. It poisons the soul, leaving a man or woman hollow, wondering, why do they not value me? But know this, the world does not rob you of dignity, you give it away. And how? Through habits so destructive, so insidious, that they erode the foundation of your worth before you even realize it. Let me name them, so you may cast them aside and reclaim the honor you were meant to carry. Number 1. The habit of speaking without meaning. There is nothing more pitiful than a voice that fills the air, yet carries no weight. Words are meant to be weapons, shields, tools of creation, and instruments of wisdom. And yet, how often do people reduce them to mere noise? They speak without thought, without meaning, without understanding the power they wield. Look around you. How many times have you witnessed a person talking endlessly, as if the sound of their voice alone grants them value? They interrupt, they ramble, they fill the silence because they fear it. But what is this fear, if not the fear of being insignificant? They believe that if they cease to speak, they will cease to exist in the eyes of others, and so they talk, not to communicate, but to be noted. Yet in their desperation they achieve the opposite. When a man speaks without meaning, he diminishes himself. His words become like a stream that flows without direction, water, yes, but undrinkable. The wise do not listen to such a man. They tolerate him, perhaps, but they do not respect him. They nod, they smile, they wait for him to exhaust himself, and when he is done, he is forgotten. His words, no matter how many, hold no weight. Consider this. Have you ever met a person who, when they speak, commands the room? They do not shout, they do not waste words, and yet, when they open their mouth, all fall silent, drawn in as if by an invisible force. This is not magic, this is not luck. This is the power of meaning. Such a person does not speak unless they have something worth saying. They do not waste words on empty pleasantries, nor do they seek approval through noise. Instead, they allow silence to be their ally, their pause to be their emphasis, their brevity to be their strength. There is a reason why the greatest leaders, warriors, and thinkers throughout history have been men and women of measured words. They understood that the more one speaks, the less one is heard. A person who cannot control their tongue is like a soldier who swings his sword wildly, hoping to strike something by chance. But the warrior who masters restraint, who waits, who strikes only when necessary, this is the one who wins battles. And yet, so many fail to grasp this. They believe that to be silent is to be weak, that to pause is to be uncertain, and so they talk, filling the air with half-formed thoughts, meaningless stories, opinions that shift with the wind. They do not realize that every word they utter without purpose chips away at their credibility. The more they speak, the less they are respected. A man who speaks without meaning is like a merchant who sells empty boxes. At first, people may gather, intrigued by the display. They may listen, they may nod, they may even pretend to be interested, but soon they realize there is nothing inside. And when they realize this, they do not return. They do not seek him out for wisdom, for guidance, for truth. They turn away, unimpressed, and forget him. Think of the moments when you have truly respected someone. Was it because they spoke the most? Was it because they filled every silence with chatter? Or was it because, when they did speak, their words carried weight? Respect is not given to those who demand attention, it is given to those who deserve it. And one does not deserve it simply by making noise. There are those who believe that speaking much is a sign of intelligence. They believe that to have an opinion on everything is to be wise. But wisdom is not found in the number of words spoken. It is found in their depth. The wisest among us are often the ones who say the least, for they understand that words are a currency not to be spent carelessly. They do not rush to speak. They listen first, observe first, understand, and when they do speak, it is with precision, with purpose, with an awareness that each word carries weight. But the one who speaks without meaning does not think this way. They believe that their worth is measured in volume rather than value. They fear silence, for in silence they must face themselves. And so they fill every moment with talk, never realizing that in doing so, they reveal their own emptiness. What does it say about a person when they must always be heard? When they interrupt, when they dominate conversations, when they cannot bear to let another speak? It says they are insecure. It says they are desperate for validation. It says they have not yet learned the discipline of restraint. A person who truly understands their worth does not need to prove it with words. They do not need to be the loudest in the room. Their presence alone commands respect. And yet society rewards the loud. It gives attention to those who shout the most, who argue the most, who force themselves into every discussion. But attention is not the same as respect. One may capture the ears of many, but if their words lack meaning, they will be forgotten as soon as they stop speaking. They may be heard, but they will not be remembered. A leader who speaks without meaning loses the trust of his people. A friend who speaks without meaning loses the confidence of those around them. A man who speaks without meaning loses his dignity. Words are not to be used as distractions, as decorations, as noise to fill the void. They are to be used with purpose. To speak simply for the sake of speaking is to announce one's own irrelevance. Consider the great minds of history. They did not waste words. They did not speak to hear themselves talk. They spoke when it mattered, when their words carried weight, when their silence had served its purpose, and it was time to break it. And because of this, they were respected. Their words, though few, changed the course of history. And so, let me ask you, when you speak, do people listen? Not just hear, but listen. Do your words carry meaning, or are they lost in the noise of a world already overflowing with empty voices? Do you choose your words with intention, or do you let them spill out unchecked, unrefined, unworthy of remembrance? If you find that people dismiss what you say, if you find that your words do not hold the power you wish they did, then perhaps the problem is not them. Perhaps the problem is that you have not yet learned the art of speaking with meaning. For those who master this art, respect is inevitable, and for those who do not, disrespect is unavoidable. Number 2, the habit of seeking approval. There is no prison more suffocating than the one built by the need for approval. A man who lives for the nods and smiles of others is not living at all. He is performing, twisting himself into whatever shape the world desires, forgetting himself in the process. He does not ask what is right. He asks, what will they like? What will make them accept me? And in that moment he hands over his freedom. How often do people betray themselves in the pursuit of acceptance? They speak words they do not believe, laugh at jokes they do not find funny, nod in agreement when their hearts scream in protest. They trade authenticity for applause, not realizing that the price is too high. The respect they crave does not come, for respect is never given to those who beg for it. It is given to those who stand firm, unmoved by the shifting winds of public favor. Look at the man who bends at every whisper, who changes his opinion with every new voice that surrounds him. He is like a leaf in the wind, directionless, powerless. People may tolerate him, may even find him useful, but they do not respect him. They see through his act, recognize his hunger for validation, and know that his words are empty. What he says today he will contradict tomorrow if only the right person tells him to. Such a man is not a man, he is a reflection of those around him, never himself. There is something pitiful about one who cannot bear to be disliked. He will do anything, say anything, compromise anything, just to avoid conflict, just to keep the illusion of acceptance intact. But does this make him strong? Does this make him worthy of admiration? No, it makes him weak. And the world, though it may smile at him, will never truly honor him. A person who seeks approval above all else will always be a slave to the expectations of others. He will shape his life not according to what is right, but according to what is popular. He will betray his own thoughts, his own values, his own instincts, all for the sake of being liked. But what is more shameful than to stand in front of a mirror and not recognize the person staring back, to have given away so much of oneself that nothing remains but an echo of what others wanted him to be? The strongest people are those who do not flinch in the face of rejection. They do not beg to be liked, nor do they shrink when others disapprove. They do what they know to be right, regardless of who agrees. And because of this, they are respected. People may not always like them, but they cannot ignore them. Their presence is undeniable, their confidence unshaken. There is something undeniable about a man who does not need validation. He moves differently, speaks differently. His words carry weight because they are not shaped by desperation. His silence is powerful because it is not filled with the fear of being forgotten. He does not need to force himself into every conversation, does not need to prove himself to every passerby. He simply is, and that is enough. But the one who seeks approval is never satisfied. He may receive it for a moment, a smile, a compliment, a nod of agreement, but it is never enough. He needs more. He needs constant reassurance that he is liked, that he belongs, that he is worthy. And so he chases it endlessly, exhausting himself, degrading himself, always fearing that the moment he stops, he will become invisible. And this fear, this terror of being overlooked, is what makes him so easy to manipulate. He can be controlled, swayed, used. A single disapproving look will make him retreat. A single harsh word will make him change course. He is at the mercy of others, never his own master. And what is more shameful than a man who does not own himself? It is a painful truth, but one that must be faced. The more one begs for approval, the less one receives it. People do not respect those who need them too much. They respect those who stand alone if necessary, who do not seek permission to be themselves. They respect those who can walk away, who do not crave validation like a starving man craves bread. To be free is to be willing to disappoint others. It is to be at peace with being misunderstood, to accept that not everyone will like you, and to move forward anyway. It is to hold firm when the world demands that you bend. It is to know that approval is fleeting, but self-respect is eternal. Number 3, the habit of betraying your own values. There is no wound more devastating than the one a man inflicts upon himself when he turns his back on what he knows to be right. It is not the betrayal of others that destroys a person. It is the betrayal of oneself. A man may lose money and earn it again. He may lose friends and find new ones. But if he loses his integrity, he loses everything. For once a man becomes a stranger to his own soul, there is no road back that does not demand suffering. Look at those who bend and twist their principles to fit the moment. They speak of honor, yet abandon it when it becomes inconvenient. They claim to stand for truth, yet remain silent when lies surround them. They wish to be seen as righteous, but only when righteousness costs them nothing. Such people are like broken compasses, spinning without direction, useless to themselves and to those around them. No one follows a man who does not even follow himself. A man who betrays his values in pursuit of approval, comfort, or gain is like a tree that willingly cuts its own roots. He may still stand for a time, but the moment the wind rises, he will fall, and when he does, no one will rush to save him. People do not respect those who shift with the tides, who are one thing today and another tomorrow. They see them for what they are: hollow, unreliable, weak. There is no respect for a man who will sell his beliefs to the highest bidder. There is no admiration for a person whose values change with the crowd. The world may use such a person, may tolerate them, may even reward them for their compliance, but it will never honor them. Even those who benefit from their betrayal will look down upon them, knowing that a man who can be bought once can be bought again. What is more pitiful than a person who knows what is right, but chooses the easier path? They feel the weight of their own cowardice. They sense the disgust in the eyes of those who once respected them. They try to justify their choices, whispering to themselves that it was necessary, that they had no other choice. But deep down, they know the truth. They failed themselves. And there is no torment greater than living with the knowledge that you were tested and found wanting. There are those who believe that values are flexible, that principles should bend to match the world around them. But what is a principle that can be discarded when it becomes inconvenient? What is a belief that crumbles under pressure? It is nothing. It is an illusion, a lie told to make weakness seem reasonable. A man who only stands by his values when there is no risk involved does not have values, he has preferences. And preferences do not earn respect. To hold true to one's values is not always easy. It is at times lonely. It is at times painful. The world will test you. It will demand that you choose between what is right and what is easy. And in that moment, you will reveal who you truly are, not to others, but to yourself. And that revelation will stay with you forever. But understand this: those who stand firm, who refuse to betray what they know to be right, earn a respect that cannot be taken away. They may lose temporary comforts. They may lose approval. They may even lose friends. But they will walk with their head high, knowing that they did not falter, that they did not sell their soul for the illusion of security. And in the end, even those who once opposed them will recognize their strength, for the world does not always love those who stand by their values, but it cannot help but respect them. Number 4. The habit of avoiding responsibility. There is no burden heavier than the weight of a life wasted in excuses. A man who refuses responsibility is a man who refuses power. He looks at his failures and points outward. He looks at his circumstances and blames the world. He convinces himself that his fate is not his own, that he is merely a victim of forces beyond his control. But in doing so, he chains himself to weakness, never realizing that the key to his freedom has always been in his own hands. Look at those who shrink from accountability. They speak of bad luck, of unfairness, of obstacles placed in their path by others. They tell stories of betrayal, of hardship, of why they could not succeed. But listen closely, and you will hear the same thing in every word they say: "It is not my fault." They believe that if they can shift the blame, they can escape the consequences. But they are wrong, because while blame may be given away, weakness cannot, and a man who refuses to own his failures will never own his victories either. A person who avoids responsibility may deceive others for a time, but they can never deceive themselves. Deep down, they know the truth. They know that they could have tried harder, could have stood stronger, could have taken charge instead of waiting for someone else to do it. And that knowledge eats away at them, turning into bitterness, into resentment, into a quiet, gnawing regret that no excuse can silence. But more than that, such a person loses the respect of those around them. People do not admire those who run from difficulty. They do not trust those who always have an excuse ready. They do not follow those who fold under pressure. A person who avoids responsibility may escape blame, but they also escape honor. They may avoid criticism, but they also avoid greatness, because no man has ever been respected, admired, or remembered for what he avoided. Look at the strongest among us, not just in body, but in mind, in character, in spirit. They do not complain. They do not shift blame. When things go wrong, they do not waste time pointing fingers. They ask, "What can I do?" And then they do it. They understand that responsibility is not a punishment, it is a privilege. Because the moment a man takes responsibility for his life, he takes control of it. He is no longer a victim of fate, of luck, of circumstance. He is the master of his own path. There is a simple truth that cowards refuse to accept. The more responsibility you take, the more powerful you become. The man who owns his failures is the man who earns his successes. The one who carries the weight is the one who grows stronger. The one who stands up when others shrink back is the one who commands respect. But the one who avoids responsibility, he remains small. He remains weak. He remains dependent on the mercy of others. And when the time comes for decisions to be made, for leadership to be taken, for strength to be shown, he will not be chosen. Because the world does not trust those who refuse to carry their own burdens. And why should it? If a man cannot even be trusted with himself, how can he be trusted with anything greater? A person who refuses responsibility believes they are choosing the easier path, but they are wrong. Because while responsibility is heavy, avoidance is suffocating. It does not free you, it traps you. It leaves you powerless, dependent, waiting for someone else to fix what you refuse to face. And nothing is more pathetic than a person who has surrendered their own life to forces they could have controlled if only they had the courage to take ownership of it. But there is another path, a better one, a harder one. It is the path of those who do not run, who do not hide, who do not waste time explaining why they can't when they could be proving that they can. It is the path of those who understand that responsibility is not something to fear, it is something to embrace. Because the man who shoulders responsibility is the man who shapes his own destiny, and in doing so, he earns the respect of all who witness his strength. My friends, if there is one truth that cannot be denied, it is this: a person who lacks discipline in their words, who craves approval at the cost of their own dignity, who betrays their values for comfort, and who flees from responsibility, will never command respect. They may earn temporary acceptance. They may fool the weak, but in the eyes of those who matter, in the eyes of their own conscience, they will remain small, powerless, and forgotten. Respect is not given freely. It is not won through empty words, nor is it granted to those who beg for it. It belongs to those who stand firm, who speak only when their words hold meaning, who seek not the approval of the crowd, but the approval of their own soul. It belongs to those who hold fast to their values, even when it costs them, and to those who take full responsibility for their lives, without complaint, without excuses, without fear. To live in such a way is not easy. It requires sacrifice. It demands strength. It may mean walking alone at times. But know this: those who live with honor, with integrity, with unshakable purpose, will never truly be alone. For even if the world does not always love them, it will always respect them. And that respect, once earned, is worth more than a lifetime of empty approval. So stand tall, speak with conviction, act with integrity, carry the weight that is yours to bear, and let no man look upon you with anything less than respect. Thank you. May you walk with strength, may you live with honor, and may you never bow to anything less than the truth. God bless you.